So our podcast is all about you and your journey in music and how you got to where you are now. And we'll talk about the new single that you just released as well.
Sweet.
Awesome. You're currently in LA?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you born and raised in Los Angeles?
No, I grew up in DC and New York, kind of both. So I moved out here for school.
Okay.
And
Tell me
I've
about
been here.
since.
Yeah. So I've been here since I graduated, I guess a few years ago, and I've just kind of been an LA person since then. But yeah, I'm definitely originally from the East Coast. So.
Okay. Tell me about that. Born in DC, you said?
I was born in New York, and then I grew up in DC, and then family moved to New York, so I kind of like grew up in both areas. But yeah, it was cool. It was I would say like coming out to California was a pretty big culture shock, just because.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure as you know. Are you from Los Angeles?
No, yeah, well, I'm from San Diego.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, my family and we just moved to Nashville, so we're in Nashville now.
Oh yeah.
But that was a bit different for I mean, it still is. We've only been here for like 2 months, so I can't imagine, going. Still same thing, you're going from the East Coast to West Coast, and we kind of did the same. We're not quite as East, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in between New York and DC though?
It was cool. I would say like DC is so nice. Like it was really, really nice growing up there. It's like clean and chill. I would say there's not a lot of music. I mean, there is a cool music scene, but it was not something that I did a whole lot of. And then once we moved to New York, I kind of started doing like, jazz sessions and sort of like learning about, there's just everything. I mean, New York just has everything. And I think like the pace is that's kind of the pace that I move at as a person. So it was totally like
yeah, quick, fast paced.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed about moving here is it's like a lot slower pace. I mean, we're in the suburbs, but it's just like going even from San Diego and being close to LA and that whole lifestyle is just so much. Everyone's in a rush, and then we moved here and it was like people are letting you in like in traffic, and it's just like,
well, you're still in the South, even though obviously you're in a big city.
Sure. Yeah, I know. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
So you came from fast lifestyle to, probably not even as fast in LA as it was in New York.
Which is funny because it's so LA.
Right. Okay, so you grew up with jazz.
Yeah. And kind of classical too, sort of. But I grew up like listening to jazz, and so that was always kind of like and that's what I studied too. So that was kind of like where I was coming from always. Like I didn't really know you could be a pop musician like at all.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, obviously like there are people doing it. I'm doing it. But I was kind of like, that was something I kind of discovered when I got to LA even. So that was an interesting sort of like trajectory for me. I just sort of like realized that there were like people writing songs and like, singing background. I don't know.
Sure. How'd you get into music originally?
So I grew up like, kind of singing in musicals and then the jazz stuff too. And I was studying like classical music, and I wanted to do that. Like I wanted to be an opera singer. And then I ended up going to school. Like I ended up getting money to go to school, and like my parents like, bye, have fun, like across the country, like have a great time. And then
you got like a scholarship?
Yeah. So then,
wow.
So that's why I ended up here.
Okay. What did you get a scholarship for? Music?
It was it was just I applied. I didn't even audition for the music school. Like I was like, I'm not going there. So I didn't audition, and then I got into like the English program. So I was actually double major the whole time. So I like auditioned. But anyways, it was like basically an accident that I ended up here. But it was great. It worked out. So
sure. How did you get into jazz?
Well, so like I said, like I grew up listening to it, and it was also kind of, I would say once my family moved to New York, I kind of was like, oh, there's just these jam sessions happening that I kind of like found out about. And then I worked at this camp called Jazz House Kids, which is like a jazz camp in New Jersey, one summer, and that kind of like opened up a lot of, sort of showed me a lot of the culture in New York. And then from there, I kind of like started to see what was up in LA with the jazz. It's a very different jazz scene in LA than it is in New York.
Mhm.
But that was kind of like where I started, which is cool because like New York is obviously such a jazz heavy city, and like it's where they came from. So
Sure.
yeah.
I see a piano and a guitar there. What was the first instrument you learned?
Oh yeah, my setup. I started on piano, like just sort of when I was younger. I took piano. I mean, guitar has been pretty like relatively recent, but
Okay.
still, I
With
can't.
piano, were you learning like jazz piano? Did you play jazz and classical music?
Yeah, I learned like when I was younger. I just learned sort of classical stuff, and then I didn't start learning jazz on the piano until I was like in college. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's
Just
been new too, but it's definitely really eye-opening. I would say it expands the possibilities of
sure.
music a lot.
Were you writing music when you were in New York?
A little bit, but not really. I was like singing classical. It was really like I was like I want to be a singer.
Uh-huh.
And then even when I got here, I was like I want to be a session singer. Which I still like do,
Oh, okay.
you know, sort of tour and stuff, but yeah, I didn't really start writing seriously until I moved here. So that
Okay.
was kind of
You
the
s-
city sort of influenced that.
did you say that you have done your background or like a session singer or like studio stuff? And
Yeah.
you said you were you toured as well?
Yeah, I toured on background vocals like right before the pandemic, and then
Okay.
obviously it stopped. But
Sure. Like,
that's
were you able to
yeah.
tour with some big artists?
I toured with this artist Engelbert Humperdinck, who is like an older crooner artist. And that was kind of my first touring. Well, actually that's not true. I was actually touring on keyboards with like a couple groups and like kind of keyboards and background vocals, but that was sort of my first big like, you know, we were supposed to go to Europe, which we didn't end up doing obviously.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but that was kind of like my first background gig, which I love doing that too. Like it's really cool to not be in charge all the time.
Sure.
You know, like you just show up and sing and then like you can hang.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow. Were you guys doing like big theaters?
Yeah, and like casinos and stuff.
Oh, cool. That's
Yeah, that's
cool.
fun.
Were you able like so I'm sure that was probably a different experience than touring as the keyboard player in a smaller band?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, did you
Um,
get a bus and that whole deal and the hotels and all that
yeah.
comes with it? That's cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. I'm looking forward to continuing to do that. I think it's like a really cool, it's really cool to do both, I think. You know,
Yeah,
just kind of have, I like to just do a lot of different things. So
sure.
for me, like that was really fun.
That's awesome. And when did you start writing music? You said not until you moved to LA?
Yeah, I wrote a little bit in high school, but I never, like I said, you know, I kind of was like, oh, people are doing this. People are doing this. Like this
Mhm.
is a thing. That
Was
you
there like a
can't.
moment that like kind of like a light bulb turned on for you?
Well, I think so. I was in the jazz like hang when I
Hmm.
moved here, and like writing in jazz, especially as like a jazz vocalist, is pretty. It's related, but it's kind of different, you
Okay.
know, than writing a pop song because you're sort of like arranging for a jazz group. So like you have your solos and you have your. So the first songs I wrote were like not jazz tunes, but they were like, you know, there's an A section and a B section, and then everyone takes a solo, and you kind of like it's a jazz thing. So that was kind of how
Right.
I like eased into it, and then
Okay.
you know, I was fortunate because I was in I was at USC, and there's a pop program like next door, physically next door, and so
Okay.
like all my friends were doing that, and I was like, oh, I see like sort of the full scope of how you can be a writer.
Okay. And then you
So
started just
and
you went in the more of the pop lane that way.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and
And
kind of like being in the city too was like oh, everyone is, you know, like Hotel Cafe. I started playing like songwriter nights, and like that's what everyone's doing is writing songs and working them out for an audience. So
how was that? Was that nerve-wracking, like showing your music to other people for the first time?
yeah, it's interesting. Like I started, I was like, I'm gonna play, you know, like a few like one songwriter night a week was like my goal for a while,
Hmm.
which is, you know, it's easier because you just go and I had to learn too to like really accompany myself on my own songs and like kind of give every section it's due diligence or whatever. So, you know, like really getting good at like the parts, and I like always write, you know, intricate parts. It just like makes it difficult for myself, obviously. But, you know, but it's interesting because sometimes like I'll be playing a song solo and I'm like, I'm bored right now. Like I'm bored in this section. So like, but that's the point, you know, it's like when you're
Right.
performing your own songs, you're like, which sections or which songs even like are captivating when you're not just playing them by yourself. And like, I'll be like in the middle of a section, I'm like, all right, this is like not a keeper, or like this
Okay,
bridge
you're
has to
losing the
go.
audience. Yeah, okay. That's interesting.
So,
So you can work them out that way and kind of get like immediate response and feedback from the crowd.
yeah, it is really, and you can feel, I mean, it doesn't work for every song, right? Because some songs are like written for a band. So if you like know that it's like a heavy hitting song, like obviously if you're just playing it solo, it's not gonna have the same effect. But yeah,
Sure.
for the most part, even like with a, you know, after a slow ballad or anything, you can feel the energy in each section, which is, it's cool.
Yeah, was that, I'm sure that was still pretty, you know, you're pretty vulnerable, like going up there and playing your songs to a bunch of people that you don't know.
Yeah, I definitely got used to it, but
Okay.
I would say, and the other funny thing is like the songwriter nights in LA all kind of have their own like energy, like their own vibe. So like the people who, you know, so there's Joel Eccles is the guy who runs Monday Monday, which is like the hotel cafe one. He's like
Uh-huh.
amazing. And but you know, everybody who goes up there is like is like really a writer. And the vibe is like make a really witty quick joke, and
Mhm.
then it's kind of like a really specific sense of humor, and like I'm really bad at it, so I'll go up and I'll be like, I wrote this song and like I hope you guys like it, and everyone's like, okay, like she does not have jokes, but like
Right, right. But you
but
don't
it's
need
the,
jokes.
yeah, you're right, it's
Like
but it's the
this
vibe.
isn't the comedy store.
True but it's funny, and then like other nights it's like a different thing, so the
Sure.
community is like a big part of it too.
That's cool. And what was the first song you put up? I'm looking at your Spotify. It looks like you have a couple songs or 3 songs on there. Was No Answer the first one you put up?
Yeah.
What was that like putting your first song on, you know, and kind of tackling this as a solo artist?
It was really exciting.
Mhm.
I this song, the project that I'm releasing right now is a collaboration with my friend Eli, so that kind of made it easier because we sort of like wrote and produced everything together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I almost feel like it's cheating because I'm like, well, we did it. You know, it's like I'm easing in.
Yeah, but everybody collaborates at some point
Yeah,
or
yeah.
another.
Yeah, so but yeah, it's been fun and like really learning how to properly like promote and like what's going on in sort of like that world of
Mhm.
like PR and like building your community. Like that's something I have I feel like I have a lot of work to do on, is just sort of like building a community that like is interested in this world of music that is in
Sure.
my head.
I think everybody that's yeah,
Yeah.
that's the hardest thing, I think, you know,
Right.
getting people to be not interested, but like even just get it in front of people.
Right.
So, but I mean, your song's doing well. The most recent one is Parasomnia.
Yeah, well, Another Moon I just released end of April, but
Oh,
Parasite
that one.
was before that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, Another Moon came out later. Got it. Okay. Well, tell me about Parasomnia, and then we'll talk about Another Moon.
Yeah, Parasomnia is kind of the most experimental one that we wrote on this. It's so the EP is 4 songs.
Okay.
Um,
So there's one more
and
coming, or
yeah,
is No Answer part of it also?
yeah. So there's
Okay.
one more coming, and that will be like mid-June.
Okay.
But yeah, so Parasomnia is kind of like experimental. We wrote kind of just like this groovy kind of hooky thing, and then we were like, let's not have any lyrics in the bridge, let's just like mess with the vocals and see what's up. So it ended up kind of being this thing. Parasomnia is like um it's like sleepwalking, like a sleep
Hmm.
sort of weird stuff that happens when you sleep. So we were like, let's have that reflected, sort of like subconscious thoughts reflected
I
in
love
the
it.
bridge. Like, so yeah, that was sort of the concept of that song.
That's cool. And the most recent one is Another Moon.
Yeah.
What's that one? What was that one about?
That one is just kind of fun. Like it's about escaping, I would say, like sort of to a different world. And we wrote, I'm trying to remember the process kind of that one, but I think we just sort of came up with the hook and we were like, it's just fun. And we kind of did the same thing with the bridge where we had like a weird section instead of having it be like, a typical song form.
Right.
Probably because so Eli's also a jazz musician and
so you guys don't follow the typical pop song formula. Got it. Okay.
But that was actually a really fun part of it, is just kind of having these like weird sections that aren't quite, straight, I don't know, straight pop, like pop or whatever.
Yeah.
But the ideas are just sort of like reflected a little bit, hopefully differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's sort of building another world.
Well, you were saying that you're on tour right before the pandemic hit, or when the pandemic hit. Aside from that tour shutting down, was that when you were able to write this record and like really start the solo project, or was this something that you had going prior to, the pandemic?
Yeah. So we wrote it before. And then we finished it. So we did a lot of sessions together, sort of like doing the vocals, whatever. And then I took the sessions and like did extra production and kind of like finished up the vocals during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say like the biggest part of this project that came together was the visual side of it, which was really cool because that's not something that I necessarily had together before the pandemic. Like I think I really realized, probably because everything we're doing is online, like everything we're doing is visual, like
sure,
to a certain degree. So and beforehand I was like really focused on playing live, like how do you perform well in front of people, like whatever, that's its own art form.
Sure.
But yeah, the visual stuff has been really fun to like really pull together during this, because it's definitely been inspired by what's been happening.
Right. Yeah, it kind of gave you a time to build the other half of the project.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about writing out, like, once the EP comes out, do you have other songs or has it been just really focusing on the visuals and kind of getting this project together?
Yeah, there's definitely stuff coming up. Yeah, it's been cool. Like during the pandemic too, like I've just really been working on my production chops. So I have a lot of stuff that like I'm producing by myself and just sort of like pulling together. But yeah, I mean, I'm just excited for it too, because now I kind of know like, okay, the visuals have to be fire. Like the visuals have to be on point too. So that's what I'm getting together right now, is like the visual stuff for the new music.
I love it. And it looks like you might be able to play some live shows here soon as well.
I know, thank God.
That must be exciting. Do you have anything planned, or are you still kind of waiting to see how this pans out over the next couple months?
Yeah, I actually might be playing a show on the 22nd, which is next Saturday.
Really?
Yeah, live. It's gonna be like a live stream. It's also a show in downtown, but we're working it out right now, so I'm excited about that.
That's really cool.
I know it's so soon, but
that's awesome. Well, yeah, I can't wait to have this all open up and have everyone able to perform again. I mean, everyone's been waiting around for so long now that
I know
once shows happen, it's going to be a big moment. I think
it's going to be insane.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
People are going to lose it. So
yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Olivia, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
It's so much fun. Thank you so much for having me.
I do have one more question for you.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
I would say, well, I think I am an aspiring artist, first of all. Like, who am I to say? But I would say what I've been working on is just having patience and like learning things deeply instead of sort of in an overarching way, which I tend to do. I'm like, I need to know everything right now. But I think, like if there's something you want to deepen in your artist career, like taking the time to really learn everything about it, whether it's like how to promote or how, your music or how to play live, whatever, like really like just having faith that like the time it takes is the time that it's going to take. And then, he'll be better for it. That's the main thing I would say I'm working on right now. So.